I never thought I'd be the grandmother who didn't get to see her grandchildren. That was something that happened to other people, the difficult mothers-in-law, the ones who couldn't keep their opinions to themselves, the ones who created drama. Not me. I prided myself on being understanding, supportive, and most importantly, knowing when to step back. But sometimes life has other plans, and sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who hurt you in ways you never imagined possible. My son Michael was always my pride and joy, a thoughtful boy who grew into a kind man with a sharp mind and gentle soul. When he met Vanessa in his senior year of college, I was thrilled. She was beautiful, ambitious, and seemed to adore my son. The way she looked at him made my heart warm. I thought, this is the perfect match for my boy. Their wedding was everything I could have hoped for. I helped plan it, of course, though I was careful not to overstep. I wanted them to have their special day exactly as they wanted it. I even used part of my retirement savings to help pay for it when they went over budget. It was worth every penny to see the joy on their faces. When my first grandchild, Emma, was born 3 years later, I was over the moon. I still remember holding her tiny body against my chest, her perfect little fingers wrapped around mine. 2 years after that came Lucas, a bouncing baby boy with his father's eyes and his mother's smile. Those early years were magical. I babysat whenever they needed, brought homemade meals when Vanessa was too tired, and provided a listening ear when either of them needed to talk. "Mom, I don't know what we'd do without you," Michael would say, giving me one of his bear hugs that made me feel like the luckiest mother in the world. Life settled into a comfortable routine. I lived just 20 minutes away in the same suburban neighborhood I'd called home for 30 years. I'd visit a few times a week, sometimes planned, sometimes just dropping by with fresh cookies or a new toy I couldn't resist buying for the kids. Vanessa seemed grateful for the help, especially as her career in marketing started taking off. I was 63 when things began to change. It was subtle at first, Vanessa taking longer to respond to my texts, planned visits being canceled last minute, the kids suddenly having too much homework for me to babysit. I noticed but didn't push. Young families are busy, I told myself. They need their space. Then came Emma's 8th birthday party. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks, had bought her a beautiful charm bracelet I knew she'd love. I arrived at their house with my gift and a homemade cake. Emma's favorite, chocolate with raspberry filling. "Oh, Margaret," Vanessa said when she opened the door, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "We weren't expecting you for another hour." I checked my watch, confused. The invitation said 2 o'clock. Did it? We must have changed it. The party's at 3 now. Most people aren't here yet. She glanced behind her, and I could hear children's laughter coming from the backyard. "That's okay," I said, trying to hide my hurt. "I can help set up." Vanessa's smile tightened. "Actually, everything's already done. Why don't you come back in an hour? Michael's picking up the cake right now anyway." I looked down at the cake box in my hands. "But I brought—" "Oh, we ordered a special one. With princesses. Emma's really into princesses now." She didn't even look at what I'd brought. You know how kids are, always changing what they like. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Emma had told me just 2 weeks ago how much she loved chocolate and raspberry together. "Of course. I'll come back later." I drove to a nearby park and sat on a bench, trying not to cry. It was just a miscommunication, I told myself. Nothing more. But when I returned an hour later, the party was in full swing. And I realized I was the only grandparent there. Vanessa's parents lived across the country, but Michael's father, my ex-husband, and his wife lived even closer to them than I did. They were chatting and laughing with the other parents like they belonged. "Grandma!" Emma ran to me with open arms, and for a moment, everything felt right again. "You came." "Of course I did, sweetheart. I wouldn't miss your birthday for anything." I handed her my gift, and her eyes lit up as she opened it. "It's beautiful." She immediately put the bracelet on, admiring the way it sparkled in the sunlight. "Thank you, Grandma." That's when Vanessa appeared, tense smile in place. "Emma, honey, why don't you go play with your friends? They're waiting for you." Emma looked reluctant but did as she was told. I tried to engage Vanessa in conversation, but she kept excusing herself to tend to other guests. I eventually found Michael manning the grill, and he gave me a quick side hug. "Hey, Mom. Glad you could make it." "Michael, is everything okay? I feel like I'm getting the cold shoulder here." He flipped a burger, not meeting my eyes. Everything's fine. Vanessa's just stressed about making sure the party goes well. You know how she is about hosting. I did know. Vanessa liked things perfect, but this felt different. Are you sure that's all it is? Michael sighed. Look, Mom, can we not do this right now? It's Emma's day. I backed off, not wanting to create tension. But as the party continued, I couldn't help noticing how I was subtly excluded. Seated at the far end of the table during cake time, not included in the family photos, my homemade cake sitting untouched in the kitchen while Emma blew out candles on an elaborate store-bought one. When it was time to leave, I hugged my grandchildren tight, trying to memorize the feel of their arms around me, the smell of their hair. Something told me these moments might become more precious than I realized. My suspicions proved correct in the weeks that followed. My calls went to voicemail. My texts received short, perfunctory responses. When I did manage to arrange a visit, Vanessa would hover nearby, redirecting the children's attention if our conversations ventured into anything meaningful. Then came the conversation that shattered my heart. It was a crisp autumn day, leaves crunching under my feet as I walked up their driveway. I'd brought art supplies for the kids. Emma had mentioned wanting to learn to paint, and Lucas loved anything creative. Vanessa opened the door before I could knock, as if she'd been watching for me. Margaret, we need to talk, she said, her voice cool and detached. Michael's not here, but this can't wait. Alarm bells rang in my head as I followed her into the kitchen. The house was quiet, no pitter-patter of little feet, no cartoons playing in the background. Where are the kids? I asked, setting down my bag of art supplies. At a play date. Vanessa sat at the kitchen island, gesturing for me to take the seat across from her. Margaret, I'm going to be direct. We think it's best if you scale back your involvement with the children. I felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. What do you mean? The dropping by unannounced, the excessive gifts, the constant calls and texts. It's too much. The children need consistency and structure, and quite frankly, your influence is becoming problematic. Problematic? I echoed, my voice hardly more than a whisper. Vanessa, I don't understand. What have I done? She sighed, as if explaining something to a child. It's not what you've done specifically. It's your approach to parenting. The kids come back from time with you hyped up on sugar, with toys we don't approve of, and ideas that directly contradict our parenting philosophies. I racked my brain trying to understand. Yes, I occasionally let them have an extra cookie, or bought them a toy they'd been eyeing. What grandparent didn't? I'm just trying to be a loving grandmother. And that's fine, but within boundaries. Her voice hardened. Plus, Emma and Lucas are getting older now. They need to be focusing on academics, extracurriculars, building skills for their future. They don't have time for, well, frankly, for the kind of old-fashioned, indulgent grandparenting you provide. The word hit me like a slap. Old-fashioned. Was that how they saw me? As some relic from another time, out of touch and irrelevant? Vanessa, if there are specific concerns, we can discuss them. I'm always willing to respect your and Michael's wishes as parents. We've tried that, Margaret. You agree in the moment, then go right back to your old ways. She leaned forward, her expression softening in a way that felt rehearsed. Look, no one's saying you can't see the kids at all. We just need to make it more structured. Maybe once a month, here at the house, with one of us present. Once a month? With supervision? Like I was some kind of threat? Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not in front of her. Does Michael know about this conversation? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. A flicker of something, guilt, perhaps, crossed her face. We've discussed it. He agrees it's for the best, but thought it might be easier coming from me. I didn't believe her. Not entirely. My son could be conflict avoidant, yes, but to cut me off from my grandchildren without even being present for the conversation? That didn't sound like the boy I raised. I'd like to hear that from him, I said. Fine. Vanessa pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, then held it out to me. A text conversation was open on the screen. I could see her message. Having the talk with your mom now. You still on board? And below it, Michael's response. Yes. Be gentle though. Call if you need me. The room seemed to tilt around me. My own son had authorized this. Had agreed to reduce me to a monthly visitor in my grandchildren's lives. I see, I said, my voice hollow. I stood up, legs unsteady beneath me. Well, thank you for being direct. We can work out a schedule, Vanessa offered, as if she were doing me a favor. The first Saturday of each month, perhaps? From 2 to 4. 2 hours. Once a month. 8 years of love, babysitting, midnight fevers, school pickups, soccer games, and ballet recitals, reduced to 24 hours a year. That won't be necessary, I said, summoning what dignity I had left. Please let me know when Michael is available to discuss this. I'd like to hear his thoughts directly. Vanessa's expression hardened again. Margaret, we're not negotiating here. This is what's happening. You can either accept the time we're offering, or make this more difficult than it needs to be. The threat was thinly veiled but clear. Challenge this and you might not see them at all. I picked up my bag of art supplies. Tell Emma and Lucas I love them, and that their grandmother will always be there for them, whenever they need me. I walked out with my head high, made it to my car, and then fell apart. Sobs racked my body as I gripped the steering wheel, my world crumbling around me. How had this happened? What had I done to deserve this? Michael called later that night. I let it go to voicemail, not trusting myself to speak to him without breaking down again. His message was strained, uncomfortable. Mom, I know Vanessa talked to you today. I'm sorry if it came as a shock. We just think, well, the kids are at important developmental stages right now and we need to be careful about influences and consistency. Call me back when you can, okay? I love you. Influences. As if my love was somehow contaminating his children. I didn't call him back. Not that night and not the next day either. I needed time to process, to figure out how to respond without letting my hurt dictate my words. By the third day, when my phone rang again with Michael's number, I felt composed enough to answer. Hello, Michael. I kept my voice neutral, neither warm nor cold. Mom. He sounded relieved that I'd picked up. How are you? How do you think I am? The words came out sharper than I intended. I've been told I'm only allowed to see my grandchildren for 2 hours a month under supervision, because I'm apparently a bad influence. That's not what we meant. Then what did you mean, Michael? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you and Vanessa have decided I'm not good enough to be in your children's lives. He sighed heavily. Mom, you know we value everything you've done for us for the kids. It's just, things are different now. The kids have so many activities, so much schoolwork. We're trying to raise them with certain values, certain priorities. And my values don't align with yours? Is that what you're saying? Not exactly. It's more that. Well, times have changed. Parenting has evolved. Some of your approaches are a bit outdated. There it was again. Old. Outdated. Too ancient to be relevant in their modern lives. I'm 63, Michael, not 93. I'm not senile. I'm not incapable. My voice broke despite my best efforts. Those children are a part of me. How can you ask me to step back from loving them? No one's asking you not to love them, Mom. We're just setting boundaries. Boundaries that exclude me from their lives in any meaningful way. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is cutting me out without a single concrete example of what I've done wrong. What's not fair is allowing your wife to dictate when and how I can see my own grandchildren. The line went quiet for a moment. When Michael spoke again, his voice had hardened. This was a joint decision, Mom. Don't make Vanessa the villain here. And if you want examples, fine. How about the time you let Emma stay up until midnight watching movies when she had a test the next day? Or when you bought Lucas that violent video game we specifically said he couldn't have? Or all the times you've undermined our authority by saying things like, oh, your parents are too strict, or one more cookie won't hurt. I was stunned. Yes, there had been the occasional lapse in judgment, moments where I'd perhaps overindulged them. But these were minor infractions, not grounds for excommunication. I'm sorry if I've overstepped, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But those seem like things we could discuss and resolve, not reasons to cut me out of their lives. We're not cutting you out, Mom. We're just creating structure. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was gentler. Look, why don't you come over this weekend? We can talk more in person, maybe set up some guidelines that work for everyone. It was an olive branch, however small. I clung to it. All right. Saturday. Saturday works. Around noon. We agreed on the time, and I spent the next few days preparing myself. I wrote out my thoughts, trying to articulate my feelings without sounding defensive or accusatory. I reminded myself that this was about the children, not about my wounded pride. Saturday arrived, cold and gray, matching my mood. I dressed carefully, a nice sweater, my good jeans, minimal makeup. I wanted to look put together, but not like I was trying too hard. Normal. Reliable. Not the unstable influence they seemed to think I was. This time when I arrived, both Michael and Vanessa were waiting. The children, once again, were nowhere to be seen. "They're at their activities," Michael explained, ushering me into the living room. "Emma has dance and Lucas has his coding class." We sat awkwardly, me on one couch, them side by side on the other. A united front. "We've been thinking," Michael began, "about how to make this work for everyone. We understand you want to be involved," Vanessa added, her tone professionally sympathetic. "And we want the children to have a relationship with you. It's just about finding the right balance." I took a deep breath. "Before we discuss schedules and boundaries, I'd like to understand what's really going on here. Because this feels sudden, and frankly, it feels personal." Michael shifted uncomfortably. "It's not personal, Mom." "Then what is it?" "Because a few months ago, I was good enough to watch your children 3 days a week while both of you worked. I was good enough to drive them to and from school when your schedules got too hectic. I was good enough to sit in emergency rooms with them when they had fevers, and you couldn't get away from work." My voice remained calm, though my heart was racing. What changed? Vanessa and Michael exchanged a look. One of those married couples' glances that contained an entire conversation. "Mom," Michael said finally, "you're getting older." I blinked. "We're all getting older, Michael. Every day." "What Michael means," Vanessa interjected, "is that we've noticed some concerning things. Forgetfulness. Confusion sometimes. The kids have mentioned it too." I felt like I'd been doused with cold water. "What are you talking about?" "I'm not confused or forgetful. You forgot to pick Emma up from ballet last month," Michael said, "because you told me her class had been canceled that day." I protested. "I have the text message to prove it." "And last week," Vanessa continued as if I hadn't spoken, "Lucas said you got lost driving to the park. A park you've been to dozens of times. We tried a new route because of road construction. Lucas was helping me navigate. It was a game, not confusion." But I could see from their expressions that my explanations didn't matter. They had constructed a narrative, the declining, unreliable grandmother, and were fitting every incident into it. "We're concerned about the children's safety," Vanessa said, her voice dropping to that patronizing tone people use when discussing elderly relatives. "What if something happened while they were in your care? What if you had a health emergency, or forgot them somewhere dangerous?" I'd never felt more insulted in my life. I was healthy, active, mentally sharp. I volunteered at the library, took water aerobics classes 3 times a week, and was part of a book club that tackled everything from modern fiction to classical philosophy. There was nothing wrong with my mind or my ability to care for my grandchildren. Have I ever, in 8 years, put those children in danger? I asked, my voice quiet but firm. "No, but," Michael started. "Have I ever been unavailable when you needed me? Have I ever neglected them, or failed to meet their needs? That's not. Have I ever given you any legitimate reason to believe I can't be trusted with them?" Silence filled the room. Then Vanessa spoke, her voice cool and distant. "We're their parents, Margaret. We don't need to justify our decisions about their care to anyone." And there it was. The real issue wasn't my age, or my supposed forgetfulness. It was control. Vanessa's control specifically, which Michael was unwilling to challenge. "I see." I straightened my shoulders, looking directly at my son. "Michael, may I speak with you alone for a moment?" Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "Anything you have to say can be said in front of both of us. Actually, I'd like to speak to my son privately. Just for a few minutes." I kept my gaze on Michael, silently pleading with him to stand up for me. "Just this once." He hesitated, then nodded. "It's okay, Van. Just give us a few minutes." The look she gave him was venomous, but she stood and left the room, her footsteps deliberately heavy on the stairs. When we were alone, Michael slumped slightly, the united front facade crumbling. "Mom, this isn't how I wanted things to go." Then why are you letting them go this way? Michael, be honest with me. Is this really about my age? Or is it something else? He ran a hand through his hair. A gesture so familiar, so reminiscent of the little boy he'd once been, that my heart ached. It's complicated. Enlighten me. He sighed deeply. Vanessa thinks. She feels that you undermine her parenting, that you judge her for working full-time, for not being the kind of mother her mother was, or that you were. I've never said anything like that. Maybe not directly, but she picks up on things. The way you sometimes question her decisions, or suggest how we used to do things in your day. I thought back, trying to recall instances where I might have inadvertently criticized her. There had been moments, perhaps gentle suggestions about bedtimes or nutrition or screen time, but nothing that warranted this level of exclusion. Michael, if I've ever made Vanessa feel judged, I'm truly sorry. That was never my intention. I respect how hard both of you work, and how devoted you are to giving Emma and Lucas the best life possible. I know, Mom. He looked deeply uncomfortable. But Vanessa feels strongly about this. And I have to support my wife. Even at the expense of your mother? Of your children's relationship with their grandmother? He wouldn't meet my eyes. We're not cutting you out completely. Just creating structure. 2 hours a month isn't a relationship, Michael. It's a visitation schedule like for a distant relative or a criminal. Don't be dramatic, Mom. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being honest about how this feels. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Michael, do you remember when you were 10 and your father left? Do you remember how I worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads? How I never missed a soccer game or a parent-teacher conference, even when I was exhausted? How I put you through college, even though it meant I'll probably never be able to fully retire? His face softened. Of course I remember. You were amazing, Mom. You still are. Then how can you do this to me? How can you take away the joy of being a grandmother? The reward I get after all those years of sacrifice. Tears filled his eyes. I don't want to hurt you, Mom. I love you. But Vanessa and I are a team, and I have to respect her wishes on this. Even when they're unreasonable. Even when they're cruel. Before he could answer, Vanessa's voice cut through the room. Cruel? Is that what you think of me? She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes blazing. I hadn't heard her return, hadn't meant for her to overhear. But now that she had, I didn't back down. Yes, Vanessa. I think it's cruel to separate children from a grandmother who loves them, based on vague accusations, and without any real chance to address your concerns. This conversation is over. She looked at Michael. I think your mother should leave now. Michael hesitated, caught between the 2 women in his life. For a moment I thought he might stand up for me. But then his shoulders sagged, and he looked at me apologetically. Mom, maybe we should continue this another time when everyone's calmer. I stood, my heart breaking all over again at my son's betrayal. There's nothing more to discuss, Michael. You've made your choice clear. I turned to Vanessa. And you've made yours. I just hope, for my grandchildren's sake, that someday you realize what you're taking from them. I walked out of their house that day with a pain in my chest that felt physical, as if something had been torn from me. In many ways it had. The next few weeks passed in a fog of grief and disbelief. I kept expecting Michael to call, to come to his senses and realize what was happening. He did call, occasionally, but our conversations were strained and superficial. He never brought up the children or the visitation schedule again. Christmas approached, my favorite time of year, usually filled with baking cookies with the grandkids, shopping for perfect gifts, decorating my home for their visits. This year there would be none of that. Just silence and memories. A week before Christmas my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Emma and Lucas standing on my porch, bundled up against the cold, their faces alight with excitement. Grandma! They cried in unison, launching themselves into my arms. Behind them stood Michael, looking both guilty and relieved. Hey, Mom. We thought we'd surprise you. I hugged my grandchildren fiercely, breathing in their familiar scents, feeling their warm little bodies against mine. This is the best surprise ever, I whispered, tears blurring my vision. We missed you, Grandma, Emma said, her arms tight around my neck. So much, Lucas added, his voice muffled against my sweater. I looked up at Michael, questions in my eyes. He shrugged slightly. Vanessa's on a business trip until tomorrow. I thought the kids should see their grandmother. It wasn't a reconciliation. It wasn't a solution. It was a stolen moment. A secret visit behind Vanessa's back. But it was something and I clung to it. We spent the afternoon making Christmas cookies, singing carols, catching up on all I'd missed in their lives. When it was time for them to leave, I hugged them extra tight, not knowing when I'd see them again. "Can we come back tomorrow, Dad?" Lucas asked as they were putting on their coats. Michael's face fell. "Not tomorrow, buddy. Mom gets home, remember?" The children's disappointment was palpable, and it confirmed what I'd suspected. Vanessa was the driving force behind my exclusion. The children still wanted me in their lives. Michael still wanted me in their lives. But his wife's wishes trumped all. As they drove away, I made a decision. I would not beg for scraps of time with my grandchildren. I would not enable this unhealthy dynamic by accepting secret visits that taught the children their mother's authority could be undermined. If there was to be a change, it needed to be honest and open, with boundaries that respected everyone involved, including me. The new year arrived cold and bleak. I hadn't heard from Michael since the secret Christmas visit, though he'd texted a terse "Merry Christmas" on the actual day. I assumed he was back under Vanessa's thumb, regretting his moment of rebellion. I sent gifts for the children, books I knew they'd love, carefully wrapped with personalized notes, but received no acknowledgement that they'd been received, let alone opened. I tried to fill my days with activity. I volunteered more hours at the library, joined a walking group, even took a painting class I'd been putting off for years. But the hole in my heart remained, an ache that woke me in the night and followed me through my days. I missed my grandchildren with a physical pain that never quite subsided. In February, almost 3 months after Vanessa's edict, my phone rang with Michael's number. I hesitated before answering, bracing myself for disappointment. "Hello. Mom." His voice sounded strange, tight, nervous. "How are you?" "I'm fine, Michael." I kept my tone neutral, protective armor against more hurt. "How are you? How are the children?" "We're okay." He paused. "Mom, I was wondering if we could meet for coffee? Just you and me." My pulse quickened. "Of course. When? Today? Around 2? At that cafe near your place, Rosemary's." The urgency in his voice alarmed me. "Is everything all right?" "Yes. No. I don't know." He sighed. "I just need to talk to you, okay? I'll be there." I arrived early, claiming a quiet table in the corner. When Michael walked in, my concern deepened. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his normally neat hair uncombed, his shoulders slumped. He scanned the cafe, spotted me, and made his way over. "Michael, what's wrong?" I asked as soon as he sat down. He ran a hand over his face. "Everything's a mess, Mom." I waited, giving him space to continue. A server came by, and he ordered a black coffee, his go-to when stressed. "Vanessa and I are having problems," he finally said, his voice low. "Serious problems." Despite everything, my heart ached for him. "I'm sorry to hear that. It's been building for a while, but these past few months, I don't know, something's changed. She's become so controlling, so rigid about everything. The kids are walking on eggshells. I'm walking on eggshells." He looked up at me, his eyes tired. "I miss you, Mom. The kids miss you like crazy. Emma asks about you all the time." I swallowed hard. "I miss them too. More than I can say." "I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I let this happen." His coffee arrived and he wrapped his hands around the mug, seeking warmth. "I should have stood up to Vanessa months ago. But it's complicated. Marriage often is," I said carefully. "Michael, did something specific happen? You seem shaken." He took a sip of coffee, then set the mug down with deliberate slowness. "We're about to lose the house." "What? How?" "Vanessa made some investments without telling me. Bad ones. Really bad ones. She was trying to build her own portfolio, prove she could grow our savings faster than our financial advisor." He laughed bitterly. "Instead, she lost nearly everything we had in savings. And now we're 3 months behind on the mortgage." I was stunned. Vanessa had always been so careful, so meticulous about their finances. Seemed completely out of character. The The bank is threatening foreclosure, Michael continued. We've tried everything. Refinancing, loan modifications, even a personal loan to catch up, but our credit's shot because of the late payments. Oh, Michael. I had no idea things were so dire. No one does. Vanessa's too proud to tell anyone. She's been pretending everything's fine, but it's eating her alive. That's why she's been so intense lately. About everything, not just you. He looked at me directly. Mom, I'm not making excuses for how she treated you. It was wrong. I was wrong to go along with it. But I think the stress of this financial disaster has been driving a lot of her behavior. I processed this information, trying to reconcile it with the controlled, polished Vanessa I knew. What are you going to do? I don't know. He looked more defeated than I'd ever seen him. We need about $30,000 to catch up on the mortgage and avoid foreclosure. Then we need to figure out a long-term plan, because even if we keep the house, we're barely staying afloat. $30,000. A substantial sum, but one I could manage. I'd been fortunate enough to inherit my mother's house outright years ago, and my modest retirement account was healthy enough. I could help them. But after months of being pushed away, treated like I was irrelevant or incompetent, could I simply open my checkbook? Have you talked to your father? I asked, though I knew the answer. Michael's relationship with his father had always been strained. After the divorce, James had started a new family, and had always treated Michael more like an obligation than a son. Yeah. Michael's face twisted. He said he'd taught me better than to come begging for handouts. That sounded like James, all right. I'm sorry. It's fine. I didn't really expect anything different. He rubbed his eyes. Mom, I'm not here to ask for money. I just needed someone to talk to. Someone who wouldn't judge me for the mess we're in. I reached across the table and took his hand. I would never judge you, Michael. And I would do anything to help you and the children. I know. He squeezed my hand, then let go. But I can't ask that of you. Not after how we've treated you these past few months. You're not asking. I'm offering. The words came automatically. My maternal instinct to protect and provide as strong as ever. But then I stopped myself. Was I once again putting everyone else's needs before my own? Rushing in to solve problems without addressing the underlying issues? If I simply handed over the money, what would change? Vanessa would still see me as an intrusion, a nuisance to be managed. The pattern would continue, with me on the outside looking in at the lives of those I loved most. Actually, I said slowly, I think we need to have a bigger conversation. One that includes Vanessa, and addresses everything that's happened. Michael looked wary. Mom, I don't think now is the time to rehash old grievances. We're in crisis mode. I understand that, and I'm willing to help with that crisis. But I won't be a financial resource while continuing to be treated as an inconvenience in your lives. He flinched at my blunt words. That's not fair. Isn't it? Michael, I raised you to face problems honestly, to take responsibility for your actions and their consequences. I won't enable a situation where I'm good enough to provide financial support, but not good enough to be a real part of your family. For a moment, anger flashed across his face. That quick temper he'd inherited from his father. But then it faded, replaced by something closer to shame. You're right, he said quietly. I know you're right. I just don't know if Vanessa will agree to that kind of conversation right now. She's barely holding it together as it is. I considered this. Then why don't you bring the children to see me tomorrow? We can spend the day together while Vanessa has some time to herself. Sometimes a little space can provide perspective. He hesitated, then nodded. Okay, I think that could work. As he was leaving, he turned back at the door. Mom, thank you for listening, for not just writing us off after how we've behaved. You're my son, Michael. Nothing will ever change that. The next day dawned bright and clear. A perfect winter Saturday. I spent the morning preparing fresh cookies baking in the oven, Emma's favorite macaroni and cheese ready for lunch, a new puzzle for Lucas that I'd been saving for a special occasion. At precisely noon, the doorbell rang. Grandma! Two voices squealed in unison as I opened the door. Emma and Lucas barreled into me with such force I nearly lost my balance. Oh, my darlings! I hugged them fiercely, tears springing to my eyes. I've missed you so much. We missed you too. Emma declared, her arms tight around my waist. At 9 she was getting so tall, her head now reaching my shoulder. Why did you go away? Lucas asked, his 6-year-old face solemn with confusion. I glanced at Michael, who stood awkwardly in the doorway. I didn't go anywhere, sweetheart. I've been right here all along. Then why couldn't we see you? Emma persisted. Mom said you were too busy. Another lie. I swallowed my anger, focusing on the children. Well, I'm never too busy for you too. And today we're going to have the best day ever. I've made cookies and lunch is almost ready. And then I thought we could do a puzzle and maybe watch a movie. Their excitement was balm to my wounded soul. We settled into a day of simple pleasures. Eating, laughing, playing. Michael stayed, more relaxed than I'd seen him in months, joining in our games and conversations. It felt like old times, before Vanessa's restrictions had come between us. Until my phone rang. The caller ID showed Vanessa's number. Michael's face drained of color. She knows, he whispered. Someone must have told her. I answered calmly. Hello, Vanessa. Where are my children? Her voice was tightly controlled fury. And don't bother lying. Ellen from book club saw Michael's car in your driveway. I looked at Michael, who was now pacing anxiously. The children are here with me and Michael. We're having lunch. Without my knowledge or permission. It wasn't a question. Put Michael on the phone. Now. I handed the phone to my son, who took it with visible reluctance. Van, I can explain. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but from Michael's increasingly defensive posture and the way he turned away, lowering his voice, it wasn't good. Yes, I know we agreed, he was saying. But they miss her. It's not fair to keep them apart. A pause. No, that's not what this is about. It has nothing to do with that. The conversation continued for several minutes, Michael becoming more agitated while trying to keep his voice down so the children wouldn't hear. Finally, he hung up, his face grim. She's coming to get the kids. He looked devastated. She's furious. Emma and Lucas had picked up on the tension. Is Mom mad? Emma asked, her eyes wide. A little bit, Michael admitted. But it's not your fault, sweetie. Is it Grandma's fault? Lucas asked innocently. Is that why Mom doesn't like her coming over? Michael and I exchanged startled glances. So the children had noticed more than we thought. Your mom doesn't dislike Grandma, Michael said, though his tone lacked conviction. It's just grown-up stuff. Complicated. It doesn't seem complicated, Emma said with the straightforward clarity of a child. Grandma loves us, we love Grandma. Why can't we see her whenever we want like before? Before Michael could formulate an answer, the doorbell rang, an angry, insistent sound. Vanessa had arrived. I opened the door to find her on my porch, practically vibrating with barely controlled rage. She was dressed impeccably as always, not a hair out of place, but her eyes were cold as ice. Where are they? She demanded, not bothering with greetings. Hello, Vanessa. They're in the living room with Michael. I stepped aside to let her in. She strode past me without a word, making a beeline for the living room. I followed, heart racing. Emma, Lucas, get your coats. We're leaving. Her voice was clipped, brooking no argument. The children looked between their mother and father, confused by the obvious tension. But Mom, Emma protested. We're having fun. Grandma made cookies, and we were going to watch a movie. Now, Emma. Vanessa's tone softened slightly but remained firm. We have plans this afternoon, remember? No, we don't, Lucas said innocently. You said we could do whatever we wanted today. Vanessa's eyes flashed to Michael. I see you planned this well. A whole day behind my back. Michael stood, his voice low but steady. The kids wanted to see their grandmother. They've been asking for months. I didn't think it would hurt to spend one day together. We had an agreement, Michael. Vanessa turned to the children. Go wait in the car for a minute. I need to talk to your father and grandmother. Emma looked like she might argue, but something in her mother's expression made her think better of it. She took Lucas's hand. Come on, Luke. Let's go. But I don't want to go yet. Lucas whined. Lucas. Car. Now. Vanessa's voice left no room for debate. The little boy's lower lip trembled, but he allowed his sister to lead him out. When the front door closed behind them, Vanessa turned on Michael. How dare you go behind my back like this? After everything we discussed. Discussed. Michael's voice rose. You laid down the law, Vanessa. There was no discussion. We agreed that visits would be supervised and scheduled in advance. No, you decided that. And it's ridiculous. My mother is not a threat to our children. I stood silently, letting them have this long overdue confrontation. Part of me wanted to intervene to smooth things over as I always had. But another part recognized that this clash had been brewing for months, if not years. This isn't about whether she's a threat, Vanessa snapped. It's about respecting our boundaries as parents. Our boundaries? Or your boundaries? Michael shot back. Because I never wanted to cut my mother out of our lives. That was all you. Vanessa's perfect composure slipped just slightly. She undermines me at every turn, Michael. She always has. The way she looks at me when I discipline the children, the little comments about my parenting, the constant presence. The constant love and support, Michael corrected. The free childcare when we needed it, the emergency middle-of-the-night fever watches, the birthday party she helped plan. I never asked for any of that. No, you just accepted it when it was convenient for you. Stop it, both of you. I finally stepped in, unable to listen to them tear each other apart any longer. This isn't solving anything. And the children are waiting in the car. They both turned to me, momentarily united in their surprise at my interruption. Vanessa, I said gently, I never meant to undermine you. If I've made you feel that way, I sincerely apologize. Being a mother is hard enough without feeling judged. And being a working mother in today's world comes with pressures I never had to face. She blinked, clearly not expecting this conciliatory tone. But, I continued, cutting me out of the children's lives isn't the answer. It hurts them, it hurts me, and from what I can see, it's not making your family any happier or healthier. You don't understand, she said, but some of the fight had gone out of her voice. Our family has certain standards, certain expectations. Your family, I repeated slowly. Not ours. Not Michael's and the children's and yours and extended family like me. Just yours. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? Because from where I stand, it seems like you've been working very hard to create distance between Michael and his roots, between the children and their heritage. That's absurd. Is it? Then why the sudden concern about my age, my supposed old-fashioned ways? Why the insistence that I see the children only under your direct supervision? Michael looked between us, a new understanding dawning on his face. Van, is that true? Have you been trying to separate us from Mom? Vanessa's carefully constructed facade began to crack. You don't understand. None of you understand. Then help us understand, I said softer now. What is this really about, Vanessa? She sank onto my couch, suddenly looking exhausted. My mother, she whispered. Michael and I exchanged confused glances. Your mother, he prompted. What about her? She controlled everything in our lives. Everything. What we wore, who we saw, how we behaved in public. Nothing was ever good enough. We were extensions of her, not our own people. Vanessa's voice trembled with old pain. And the worst part was, everyone else thought she was wonderful. Perfect mother, perfect wife, perfect everything. No one saw what happened behind closed doors. I sat beside her, careful to leave space between us. And you see me becoming like her with your children. She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. You're everywhere in our lives. The kids adore you. They run to you with their problems, their accomplishments. Sometimes I feel like I'm just the disciplinarian, the rule enforcer, while you get to be the fun one, the safe one. Oh, Vanessa. My heart ached for her. That's not how it is at all. The children love you more than anything in the world. You're their mother. No one can replace that, least of all me. But you're better with them than I am, she admitted, the words seeming to cost her deeply. More patient, more understanding. I'm always rushing, always stressed, always thinking about the next thing we need to do. Michael knelt in front of her, taking her hands. Van, that's not true. You're an amazing mother. Am I? Then why are we about to lose our home? Why are our children walking on eggshells around me? Why is our marriage falling apart? The tears were flowing freely now. Years of pent-up emotions finally breaking through. Wait. I said, trying to follow her logic. You think losing your home is somehow a reflection on your mothering? She laughed bitterly. Of course it is. A good mother provides security, stability. I made reckless investments trying to prove something, and now we might be homeless. Honey, Michael said gently, that mistake doesn't define you as a mother. We all make mistakes. My mother never did. Vanessa's voice was small. Not like this. And suddenly I understood. Vanessa's perfect exterior, her rigid control, her pushing me away. It wasn't about me at all. It was about her own deep-seated fear of not measuring up to her mother's impossible standards. About her terror of being seen as less than perfect. Vanessa, I said carefully, I don't know your mother, but I do know this. No one is perfect. Not her, not me, not you. We're all just doing our best with what we have. She looked at me, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. Your best seems a lot better than mine right now. That's not true. And even if it were, it doesn't matter. You're their mother. You're the one they need most. Michael squeezed her hands. Mom told me about the house, Van. About the investments. Her face crumpled. You weren't supposed to know. I was going to fix it somehow. We're supposed to be partners, he said gently. You don't have to carry everything alone. I felt so stupid, so ashamed. And then your mother kept coming around, being perfect, and She trailed off. I couldn't bear for her to know what a mess I'd made of things. So you pushed me away instead. I finished for her. Created a reason why I shouldn't be around as much. She nodded, unable to meet my eyes. I'm sorry. It was childish and cruel. The admission hung in the air between us. An unexpected breakthrough in a conversation I'd never thought we'd have. Vanessa, I said slowly, I'm not perfect. Far from it. And I've never expected you to be perfect either. All I've ever wanted is to be part of your family's life. Not to take over. Not to judge, just to love and be loved. I know that now, she whispered. I think I always knew it deep down. I was just so scared of being found wanting. Michael looked between us, hope cautiously blooming on his face. So where do we go from here? I took a deep breath. First, we deal with the immediate crisis. I can help with the mortgage situation. I held up a hand as Vanessa started to protest. Not as a handout, but as a loan with clear terms. Or as an investment in your future, if you prefer to see it that way. We can't ask you to do that, Vanessa said, though her relief was palpable. You didn't ask. I'm offering. Family helps family, Vanessa. That's what we do. And after that? Michael pressed. What about everything else? We start fresh, I said simply. New boundaries that respect everyone's roles and feelings. Regular visits that aren't supervised like I'm some kind of threat, but that don't overwhelm you either, Vanessa. Maybe a standing Sunday dinner each week. And one day a month where I take the kids for a special outing. Vanessa nodded slowly. That sounds reasonable. And communication, I added. Real, honest communication. If I overstep, tell me. If you're feeling insecure or overwhelmed, say so. We don't have to be perfect, but we do have to be honest with each other. Outside, a car horn honked, the children growing impatient. We should go, Vanessa said, rising from the couch. The kids have been in the car too long. Why don't you all stay for dinner? I suggested impulsively. I made enough mac and cheese to feed an army, and there are plenty of cookies left. Vanessa hesitated, then nodded. I'd like that actually. If you're sure it's no trouble. No trouble at all. I smiled, my heart lighter than it had been in months. Michael, would you go get the children? Tell them dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. As he left, Vanessa turned to me, her voice low and sincere. I am truly sorry, Margaret. For everything. I know. And I forgive you. I meant it too. The hurt wasn't entirely gone, but understanding had taken the sting from it. Now, would you like to help me set the table? Just like old times. She smiled then, a real smile, perhaps the first genuine one I'd ever seen from her. I'd like that very much. That dinner marked the beginning of healing for our family. True to my word, I helped them with their financial troubles. A loan with clear terms, documented and signed by both Michael and Vanessa. It gave them the breathing room they needed to catch up on their mortgage and begin rebuilding their savings. More importantly, it restored their dignity, allowing them to accept help without feeling like charity cases. Over the following months, we settled into a new rhythm. Sunday dinners became a cherished tradition, and my monthly outings with the grandchildren turned into adventures we all looked forward to. Vanessa and I developed a relationship based on mutual respect, rather than competition or resentment. We would never be best friends, but we became genuine family, supporting each other, learning from each other, accepting each other's flaws and strengths. Michael blossomed too, no longer caught in the middle of the two women he loved. I saw him stand up more for himself, voice his own needs and opinions instead of simply going along to keep the peace. Their marriage grew stronger as they learned to face challenges together instead of in isolation. As for me, I discovered a new kind of joy in being a grandmother. Not the all-access, ever-present role I'd had before, but something more balanced and ultimately more sustainable. I had time for my own interests and friendships, while still being deeply involved in my grandchildren's lives. I watched them grow with pride, savoring our time together without taking it for granted. One Sunday evening, about a year after our confrontation, Vanessa and I found ourselves alone in my kitchen, washing dishes while Michael helped the children with a science project in the dining room. "I never thanked you properly," Vanessa said quietly, handing me a plate to dry. "Not just for the money but for everything." "No thanks needed," I replied. "We're family." "Still, you could have turned your back on us after how I treated you." "Most people would have." I smiled, placing the dried plate in the cabinet. "I'm not most people. And neither are you, Vanessa." She laughed softly. "No, I suppose I'm not." She glanced toward the dining room, where Emma's delighted giggle floated back to us. "They're lucky to have you, you know. We all are." "The feeling is mutual," I assured her. "I'm pretty lucky myself." And I was lucky to have a family that, for all its imperfections and struggles, had found its way back to love and respect. Lucky to have grandchildren who filled my life with joy and purpose. Lucky even to have a daughter-in-law who had taught me that relationships are never static, never finished, that they require work and honesty and forgiveness to thrive. Most of all, I was lucky to have learned that sometimes, the most painful confrontations lead to the most profound healing. That speaking your truth, even when it hurts, can ultimately build stronger bonds than silence ever could. And that it's never too late to rewrite the story of your family, to turn hurt into healing, resentment into understanding, and fear into love. As we rejoined the others, watching Emma and Lucas proudly demonstrate their science experiment while Michael beamed beside them, I felt a deep contentment settle over me. We weren't perfect. We never would be. But we were family, beautifully, messily, authentically family. And in the end, that was all that mattered.